morning, first of all, to everyone who's present. I believe some people might be joining in sometime. Of course, this session we created from the perspective of, just doing a very specific preparation and probably also giving you an idea of how these interviews work, because there's a misconception as to how these equity research interviews actually work, or in general also investment banking interviews. Uh, but grossly, everybody has got it wrong. They try to pursue qualifications which probably are not necessary, and they also try to do certifications which are probably not necessary, right? Get into the preparation overview. So now this is where the weightage comes. So this is my honest advice. If you're preparing yourself, to focus on financial statement analysis majorly. It does not matter even if you don't know valuation a little lesser. It's okay. But you will fail the interview miserably if you're not good at financial statement analysis, right? By financial statement analysis, I mean income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, right? But you might think that, okay, that I know. Probably you don't know, because the depth which is required, which I will share you some questions, is not very shallow in terms of just knowing financial statement analysis. Okay, now let's practice. Let's do some questions here. Okay, so you can see here. Now these are easy questions, by the way. Okay, so these are the kind of questions which can turn out in terms of an MCQ test. So company, you can't really predict. Okay, I mean, some companies might give you an MCQ test. Some company might give you a case study base, and I'll also show you a case study based question also, right? So let's say the first question. Okay, it's a very simple question. You don't actually require any calculation for that. So I'll give you some time to do the first question. Okay, so I'll just read out the question though. At $200 million of revenue, right? A company has a net margin of 25%, a dividend payment ratio of 20%, right? And it has, so there's a printing mistake here, but it has repurchased 5 million worth of shares. Okay, other things constants. What will be the change in its retained earnings? All we are saying is that the company has a net margin of 25% and a revenue of 200, right? And a dividend payment ratio of 20%. So just multiply 200 with 25% first to get your net income. And on that net income, multiply the dividend payment ratio of 20%, right? Now, along with that, company has also purchased 5 million worth of shares. Question is, how much does the retained earning change? Okay. Second question. So if I have to give you an advice on the first question, the thing that you should know is what happens when I repurchase my stock, right? How does my net income get affected, or does it get affected, right? And second is, how does my dividend payment affect my income, post net income? After I have earned, obviously I pay dividends and then it goes to my retained earnings. So how does that work out? Second question, what ratio determines the financial leverage of the company? Okay, so out of these ratios, which ratio actually is helpful in finding out the financial leverage? Well, leverage, I mean to say, you're taking borrowed money, right? So, and the third question is, now this is the effect of, if you understand how does currency in a general sense works. So there's a company, a software company, which is supplying. So most of the Indian software companies are supplying software to what? To US. And the revenue which is getting generated or is getting billed is coming in USD, which is getting converted into INR. Okay, so that is why you will see there are a lot of time when the Indian currency is actually depreciating. Depreciation, I mean, when the currency becomes 60 rupees INR, say 100 rupees INR. So it actually benefits the software company, because their revenue tends to jump, because they're getting in USD, they're getting converted to INR. INR is depreciating. Now in that scenario, company has a policy of 100% hedge for all of its billings. So how does this affect the total revenue of the company? Will it increase, decrease? or remain constant? So you might want to try that out if you want, and if you have answers, you can post it in your uh, chat box. And even if you don't know the answer, you can just take a screenshot and probably solve it later on. All right. So I'll just tell you the third answer is constant. The second question is debt to equity. And the first question I'll have to calculate, but I'll tell you the answer at the end. Let's take another question. Now, this is the kind of case study based question, which they might tell you just to do it face to face, or they might also send you on an email when you get shortlisted. Right here, again, try to observe that there is actually no question about making a valuation model. Right. So let's look at this question properly. What exactly does it require us to do? So it is saying Hilton has 2,000 rooms available in the base room only. Rate of the room is $100 per night. Analyst assumes that 360 operating days are there in FY 2019 E, meaning expected. Half year will peak with 100% occupancy and 10% price increase during the peak. Okay. Whereas for off peak, 5% rooms will be vacant. Food revenues estimated at $20 per occupied room. Company has generated 50 million as other revenue. What will be the total revenue for FY 2019? Now look at my objective of showing you this case study, okay, is the fact that there is no mention of valuation. And that's precisely why I said that the focus has to be on financial statement analysis, right? And basic understanding of business. Because if you don't understand this, there is no way you can actually make this case study, right? So I'll also show you something different. So this is in case you are applying with project finance companies. So this was actually one of the students that got this as you can say probably as a email, and the student actually joined Mentor Me Careers because he thought that he will not be able to solve this case. Okay, so this is in terms of an image. You can just look at it, right? So this was in case of a project finance position, and this is what the email has been received as. Right? So they've just given you very basic assumptions, I mean, nothing much, and they've told you to make a 20-year financial model. Right? So total duration of the project is 20 years with 3 years construction and 70 years of operation. Total project cost 300. यहाँ तक सब कुछ ठीक है. After this, the funny part starts. Now, after this, the employer is trying to test whether you actually understand finance or not, right? In fact, yesterday itself, I was teaching this case as a practice case in the class, right? So assume 1% of capex as manpower cost. That means you also have to forecast capex. Now you might say the capex is 300 crores, but that is wrong. Capex, capital expenditure, is actually not 300 crores because you will also be taking debt and equity. Now, if you are constructing a project, you really don't have income. So that interest that you're not paying also becomes soft cost. So first you need to know soft cost and hard cost, right? Then you need, that will give you capex and you will be able to predict these values, right? Then again, again the interviewer is saying, we are not going to tell you what is the debt to equity ratio. You do research and you find out. Again, the interview is trying to assess whether you have the capability also to go and use your common sense that what kind of debt to equity ratios are there in project finance cases. You could look at a power plant, you could look at a solar plant, you would look at a road construction project and get what is the general sense of leverage that a company can get, right? Similarly, at the end, you can see here, there is no revenue given. The case is pretty good actually. The one who made it is saying there will be an annuity payment by government, but we are not going to tell you what annuity. You got to find what the annuity is, but it should generate a return of 20% on ROE. So that means the interviewer is also trying to test you whether you actually know ROE, right? Return on equity. So that means your financial model is going to be made. So your net income has to be so high that it gives an ROE of 20%. So that means it's going to be a trial and error method by which you're going to estimate what is going to be your revenue. Now, I'll just quickly show you. If you might say that, okay, this financial model might not be very complicated and it might be a very small and simple model, but actually what comes out of it is pretty interesting, right? So such a simple 3-liner assumption turns out into a model as complex as this, right? Just yesterday we did this. So just the same assumptions, right? Only these much. You can create a detailed model at this level, right? It does become complicated, right? So this is another case where I mean, this will probably prove the point when I was saying that people spend too much time on Excel, whereas the interview cases are pretty different, right? So I felt that this company, which was into equity research, which is into equity research, this created a fantastic interview case which tested everything, right? I mean, I was surprised at how somebody could test everything, right? So they give you a financial model. In fact, I've covered this many times, right? And the balance sheet is not tallying, right? So you got to find where the error is, and this way the interview is testing you whether you understand the cause and effect between income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. Okay. Most of the times I've seen, when I give the person, any student, even if he's a CFA charter holder, doesn't matter, at the first attempt he's not able to do this. Very difficult. Okay, because you really need to know which of these small values mean what and how does it affect the three statements, right? In the second case, if you see here, it's a very simple case, and there's just saying, okay, I've given you data for 2005 to 2009 income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, right? The revenue, and look at the trend, look at the values, and just use a logic to forecast for 2010 and 11. There's nothing wrong, there's nothing right, but what is going to happen in this interview, that is for sure, is that he's gonna sit with you in the technical round, and he's gonna ask you one-on-one why you assume this, right? Why did you assume this? What is the logic for that, right? And that will make or break the interview. Then the Excel part. So they tested you to create a data table, a pivot table, and you wanted to answer a few questions. Very simple case for Excel. And I would very much agree that in the industry, there's a too much, I mean, in terms of usability of Excel, we are very limited. Okay, there's like, you don't really need to be a coder of Excel. You just need to know the basic stuff. Okay, by basic, I mean VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, pivot table, data analysis, what if analysis, logical operators, 1 or 2 if functions, and main thing is something called as cell referencing. Knowing dollar signs, when if I'm linking a cell, do I know how to put this and when to use this dollar sign? If you ask about all of these functions and dollar sign, I would say learn the dollar sign better than, 80% know that, 20%, even if you don't know VLOOKUP, it's fine, right? Because it's very easy to learn. What's difficult to learn is the generic things. Okay, then again, see, that's what I said, VLOOKUP. There you go. These all questions have to be answered using VLOOKUP. Simple, right? And look at where the preparation is going in terms of Excel in the industry. People are teaching things which probably nobody will ever use. Chart, a simple chart. They've just shown you, इसको present करके दिखाओ. आपको क्या चाहिए? आपको एक insert चाहिए. आजकल recommended charts already आ जाते हैं. Problem क्या है? Nobody knows which chart to use. Everybody knows what all the charts to make. They know the radar chart, they know the waterfall chart, but what they don't know is, are you communicating information or not? अगर मैंने ऐसा चार्ट बना दिया, let's say I made this chart, You have to answer yourself whether this is actually communicating this information properly or not, right? That is missing, and that is what is leading many people not clearing interviews.